Satanism. To some, it's a religion as valid as Christianity. To others, it is a dangerous and subversive cult. Whatever the truth is, there are thousands of devotees of Satan, and it's becoming more and more popular thanks to the internet. But what really goes on beneath the robes, amid the candles? Is there a darker side to the sacrifices and the rituals?
Satanism refers to the real or mythical figure known as Satan, whose followers look at him as an inspiring, just, and even heroic figure.
These people that genuinely believe in Satan and all of his darkness, they believe in it far more, probably, than the pure white light of Christianity.
What if there is a ladder beyond us which consists of beings of pure energy? And what if some of them are morally good and some morally evil?
Today, it's estimated that there are as many as 100,000 Satanists in the world, all worshipping the devil, with the goat of Mendes becoming one of its most common symbols. It's a worldwide phenomenon, and it's growing every year.
Satanism is becoming more popular, and I think one of the reasons is probably the decline of the Orthodox Church, of Christianity. They've kept us under a very tight rein for the best part of 2,000 years, and yet all of us deep down want to be sinful and do naughty things. And of course, that's what Satanism is all about. Sex, debauchery, and anything else that you want to do, Satanism allows you to do it. Hallelujah. Praise the new Lord, Satan.
Satanism is pretty much at its pinnacle of popularity. It's estimated there's over 100,000 members of the Church of Satan, and it's really become quite trendy.
We see a lot of TV shows geared towards the whole concept of, very dark, satanic, witchcraft-oriented sort of TV. And we see a whole counterculture of teenagers who are becoming more interested in this and growing popularity then because of it.
There are certain extremely dubious black magicians who perform all kinds of unholy ceremonies in the name of Satan, and for them, by responding to him as the personification of evil, they can justify their own evil acts, their greed, their unrestricted sexuality, and the other strange things that they do, the blood sacrifices and so forth.
I haven't come forth in a great many years, but I can assure you, Satanism is here to stay.
Perhaps the most widely known aspect of Satanism is the Church of Satan itself, which was founded by a man called Anton LaVey in America in 1966. Today, it has thousands of members across the world and has its headquarters in the appropriately named Hell's Kitchen area of New York City. Where else? Gavin Baddeley is the church's representative in the UK, and he's agreed to meet me and tell me all about it.
I'd imagined that there would be more kind of
ritual sacrifices and pentagrams and candles and capes and that kind of thing?
Oh, we certainly have our pentagrams and candles and capes. But, yeah, that image exists, and we play up to it. And a lot of people who are drawn to Satanism are drawn because they, the sort of sex and blood iconography is very appealing. And certainly there are members of the Church of Satan who indulge in various rituals. But at core, I think far more significant is the way in which people think. And it's very easy as somebody who occasionally operates as a spokesman for Satanism to be drawn into fulfilling other people's expectations. They want the blood and the candles and the goats and everything, and that's there. But that's not what Satanism is.
But do you have ceremonies and rituals?
They take place, certainly. I've fielded a lot of telephone calls from journalists over the years who say, you know, I want you to take me to a naughty naked ritual, you know, and I'll bring my credit card. And it's kind of like, find your own naughty naked ritual. If we do these things, they're for ourselves, they're a form of theatre, they're a way of energising, they're fun.
The Church of Satan is a very corporate American thing. It's very big in the States. It's so big, in fact, now that you can actually dial 1-800 number and you'll get a call. Hi, Church of Satan, how may I direct your call? And the Americans absolutely love it. It's a cult, and they love cults. It is spreading. It's spreading to Europe, and it's spreading to England as well.
You have to imagine there's a lot of people who feel that the standards that God has set out are just too high and really quite unfair and not really something that they're up for adhering to. So this notion of the devil being kind of, you know, accepting of who you are and just a little bit naughty has a certain appeal to people.
The Church of Satan wasn't so much a pro-Satan, pro-evil. It was more of an anti-church establishment. Certainly from where it came out of the 50s and 60s, you had very much a Christian American ideal, which for a lot of people was not what they wanted. So it was a very good way of breaking away and saying, I don't want that, I want this. I want the sex, I want the drugs, I want the alcohol, I want the music, and I want to have fun. And a lot of it stemmed from having fun. One of the things that Anton LaVey said was his difference between him and the Christian church was that the Christians believe that if someone strikes you on the cheek, you forgive. He believed if someone strikes you on the cheek, you punch them in the face. Apart from that, it's a beautiful religion.
The worship of Satan is a practice as old as our civilization. But since the rise and dominance of Christianity in the Western world, it's gone underground.
In the 18th century, it became very fashionable for the aristocracy to hold secret meetings in the dark, undisturbed corners of their estates, where these satanic rituals were said to have taken place. Now, one of these groups was the infamous Hellfire Club, and they held their meetings here in these West Wickham caves.
The Hellfire Club had a reputation for wickedness and debauchery on a legendary scale. It was said that there were decadent parties, orgies, and satanic worship going on deep underground. Local guide Jack Orr agreed to take me down into the labyrinth and show me around.
So we are a set of tunnels that were done in 1748. And the beautiful thing about us is we are 100% man-made.
Okay.
And the whole way down, it goes 300 feet underground, quarter of a mile. And at the very bottom is the inner temple, which is the man-made hell of this place. The man who commissioned this place, Lord Dashwood, was the head of the debaucherous, notorious Hellfire Club, a secret society dedicated to, well, as we believe, mocking religion.
So this is where the Hellfire Club would have met, down in here?
Mm-hmm. They used to meet originally at Medmenham Abbey, which is a couple of miles away from here, but it was too public. They had the newspapers following them, and so they went, oh, we need to go somewhere else. Where better than underground?
About halfway down through the caves is a large cavern cut out of the limestone where all manner of debauchery was said to have taken place.
So this chamber coming up, this is the one I truly want you to see. This is the pinnacle point, the absolute hive. This is what they called the banqueting hall. Right. Step on inside.
Oh, wow, look at that. That's extraordinary. So what would have gone on in here?
In here, this was where they really released all their inner Bacchus, as it is. This is where they succumbed to the flesh. This was where they became even more intoxicated. So as said, they were dressed in costume, but this is where the costume would start to fall off.
Okay.
This is where they would start truly indulging themselves in several different manners. So they would begin feasting in here, and they would begin drinking even more, consuming more and more. And in these chambers behind us, these 4 alcoves, there weren't bars, there were curtains across here, and there were beds inside.
Right.
So as they were all gorging themselves here with gluttony and whatnot, they would retire there for the more lustful acts. And as you can tell, because of how this chamber is built, the sounds of all the singing, of all the grunting, all of it would have just filled this chamber and would have carried up the passageways. This would have come to life and reverberated with just sin, I suppose, is the best way.
The Hellfire Club was actually nothing more than a group of toffs, upper-class people, and the whole idea of it was sex and drugs and rock and roll. And like so many things that people don't know about, including Masons and all sorts of other things, anything that we don't know, because it was always held in secret. And the reason it was held in secret was basically because they were doing things that their wives probably wouldn't have been very keen to know about. And so people make up stories. And so it was all to do with demonology and Satanism and the black arts and black magic and all these dreadful things that they were doing. Were they? Yeah, a little bit. They were probably testing the water a little bit, but on the whole, I think it was a jolly good drinking club where a few girls were brought in, everyone got drunk, and things got rather out of hand. Nothing more than that.
The Hellfire Club was an exclusive sort of society for highbrow Britain in the 18th century. But it was really twisted. You're now several hundred feet under the earth. Anything can go on there. Nobody's gonna know. This is why you're there. You're outside of London. No one even knows you're there. And what goes on in the Hellfire Caves stays in the Hellfire Caves. And you can only imagine that They were completely unaccountable. Nobody had to apologize for anything. You walk into those caves, all bets are off. You can let all your inhibitions free and behave just the way all your fantasies would tell you you'd want to behave. That was the real 50 Shades of Grey.
So how did one become a member of the Hellfire Club?
Well, it was a secret society, so it was purely on invitation and sort of election. A man of the club could put your name forward as a possible member based on your character. There were 13 apostles. There was a sort of hierarchy, and the 13 apostles were in charge of the more secretive side of the club. They, led by the abbot, who was often Sir Dashwood himself, they did all their dark business down here. So now we're about to go to the very bottom. We are reaching our final destination as such.
Okay.
And we're about to cross over the River Styx. And I'm sure you know the legend that once you cross over the River Styx...
That's it?
No coming back.
So what, there's actually a river down here?
It is. It's a man-made river. And they would have taken a boat from where you're standing now to their final point.
This is it?
This is indeed the River of the Dead and the Damned. And round the corner is a cursing well where they used to baptise new members into the club.
Right, so there wasn't a boatman here, though?
There would have been a gondola from this side to the other to ferry them across.
Oh, right, OK. So what would have happened in here?
Well, this is where the 13 apostles and the abbot would have met. This is the secret part of the secret society. And in here we have statues depicting all of the members for their meeting. And at the very back, we have the statue of Venus overwatching everything that they're doing. And there's all sorts of rumours as to what exactly happened in here. Going from, oh, it was just lads having a good time, drinking a bit much, to ladies used to come down here and lose all of their virtues to these men.
And what about any kind of evidence of satanic worship, rituals?
Sir Francis Dashwood has had a whole library of occult and black magic books. He really leaned towards it. He found it fascinating. So it is possible that he indoctrinated a lot of these ancient rites among all of the lords and ladies in here. And you would be absolutely amazed what a lord in the 18th century could get away with if he wanted to.
It really is a strange feeling being down here in the caves, truly oppressive and quite forbidding. A rich man's satanic fantasy carved out of limestone hundreds of feet underground.
These guys that are sacrificing goats, screaming goats, cutting off the heads of chickens, drinking blood, and basically doing everything that's anti-Christ, for want of a better word. Do they believe that they're actually getting something out of it? Or is it a load of absolute crap?
They definitely could have gotten up to anything they wanted to in those caves. I mean, who is going to check up on them? We don't have the modern day press hounding them like we have today, watching and stalking their every move. So it was a very elite group of people, very secretive. And if one ratted on another one, well, then there goes their community. You would think that they would want to keep this secret. Who's going to find out? So they could get up to anything that they wanted to without anyone monitoring them.
On the surface, it was really a gentleman's drinking club. But by all accounts, it got very pagan. And in fact, it was an excuse for the high-class ladies of society to really kind of act out their sexual fantasies, because that's what it was. It was more of a pagan sex club than it was anything else.
The current Lord Dashwood agreed to meet me in the grounds of his family's estate and discuss the goings-on of his former ancestors.
Sir Edward, what would have gone on up there?
We don't know exactly what went on in direct answer to your question, but we have a good idea. Some people imagine the worst, and you have all sorts of stories that come out, particularly in the Victorian times, of what they got up to. We know they had a lot of fun. That's the main thing.
Was there any sort of satanic rituals going on down there?
I like to think not, and we have no evidence of it, although he was clearly interested in all sorts of peripheral things on the side of that. So we have Masonic symbols in one of the rooms in the house here, and we have a river Styx at the bottom of the cave itself and the inner temple. And the river Styx, you know, your mythology, it separated the real world from the underworld, and it was where care on a boatman led you across. So the fact he even built the river Styx, you know, he was interested in the afterlife and all of that. There's no doubt.
There's stories about a woman who was said to have been turned into a nymphomaniac. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yes, that was great fun. That was fantastic. So I think it was in the middle of the 80s. I recall it reasonably well, and a coach party of old dears went down the caves, and one of them came out and said she'd been a spinster all her life, had no sexual experience whatsoever, and she was assaulted by the evil influence of my ancestor, and that the Satan was at work, and he was alive and well in the caves, and therefore it should be closed down immediately because this influence had turned her into a raving nymphomaniac. And the local, but not just the local papers, actually, I think the News of the World or the Sun or one of those newspapers got a hold of it. And it was on the front page, you know, caves must be closed down due to evil influence of Sir Francis Dashwood. And the only result was we doubled the number of visitors who came to the caves, who were all obviously looking for the same experience.
And there was a priest who visited the caves who felt that there might have been some kind of evil influence down there. Tell me a bit more about him.
Well, it's quite interesting. We do get people from time to time who do feel, now whether it's their imagination or there's some reality behind it, they definitely go down there and they feel something strange, or they're not happy with the atmosphere or the influence the caves have on them. It could be their imagination, it could be true, but yes, no, you're absolutely right. From time to time, people, they come back feeling very strange from having visited the caves.
One of the most popular and disturbing manifestations of Satan and evil itself is a possession. A human body that has been taken over by a demonic entity, or even the devil himself. Chris Thompson is a practicing exorcist. He says he carries out dozens of exorcisms every year, and that he's becoming increasingly busy. He's allowed us to film a recreation of a typical exorcism.
Not welcome here. This is not your place. Step away from her. I command it. Leave her alone now. Leave her.
Really, all you've got to do is find out if it is genuinely something that's possessing them, or whether it's in their mind. I mean, obviously, people can get terrified by what's going on. So, first of all, you establish if it's genuine, and then find out who it is and get them to move out, using whatever methods necessary. There's various things I use. I do have holy water. I can also use smudging, which is burning white sage. I've also got smokeless methods as well that I can use.
What is the point of an exorcism? What are you trying to achieve?
The idea is to get whatever's moved into the host out of there.
What are you saying has moved in?
It could be a demon, or just another spirit that's moved in there to somehow try to interact with the person.
And are they real, or are they just imaginary on the part of the person you're exercising?
To the person that I'm exercising, they are very real. But who knows? Does the spirit actually just affect the mind, or does it affect the whole body?
Do you believe that there are demons, there are spirits that go around possessing people?
I do believe that there are things that we don't know about, for definite. I've recorded them on many occasions. I've experienced them for myself. Yes, I'm a medium, but I'm also very skeptical. And I'm trying to find out what it is. I don't know whether what I'm talking to is the spirit of another person, or for all I know, it could be little men from Mars that's somehow communicating with us. And I need to find the answer.
To exorcise someone, you have to believe that they are possessed by a demon, by something evil. It basically comes, again, from Christianity, of course, and the fact that there's good, so there has to be evil. And so anyone that happens to be hearing voices or anything like that, it's a demon that's either whispering in their ears or a demon that has possessed them. And the only way to get that demon out is by bringing in a priest, splashing holy water on you, screaming, "Begone, evil demon," getting them to recite various oaths and things. There's no such thing as demons. Trust me. According to the Catholic world, to conduct an exorcism, you have to be an ordained priest. But as regards Christianity as a whole is concerned, any good Christian can conduct an exorcism, a successful exorcism. I personally have, in the past, conducted exorcisms. I can't tell you whether they've worked or not, because I'm not sure how much I actually believe that anyone is possessed with an evil demon.
In an exorcism, there's the sorts of things that you would expect, and you've been seen in films for a long time. So the primary objective is to find out the demon's name. If you can find out the demon's name, you can expel them. But while you're trying to do that, you have the person who's suffering, who's possessed. They're speaking in tongues, they're vomiting, they're using vulgar language, they're behaving in a way that looks like as though they're mentally ill. They're both buying into the fact that there's a demon involved here, and thus they're both taking on roles that may just be that, not real sort of possession, but physiological sort of association with what they think they should be saying and doing and behaving.
Exorcisms can get extremely wild and rather volatile, to say the least. Projectile vomiting, spitting, young girls that are literally timid, actually with male voices, scratching and literally having to be held down by men to stop them from attacking the person that's actually conducting the exorcism. Whether it is a demon inside them or whether they're just plain bonkers, I don't know.
I'm not going to deny the existence of a spirit world, but what I do deny is the authenticity of most of these exorcists. I think they're putting on a show. I think it's sort of placebo. They're behaving in a way they've seen on television, or they feel they need to behave in order to get a reaction, a placebo reaction from the possessed. It's really a show. 9 out of 10 times, I don't think it's very authentic at all.
When you're doing an exorcism, and I haven't done many, but yes, I think you can actually tell if there is something genuinely in, when I say in that person, demon I don't know about, but I think you know whether they are genuine or whether they're actually acting it out and putting it on, whether they've put themselves into a trance before it or it's just purely an act. Yeah, you can tell.
On some occasions, I think that we are dealing with a mental problem, a psychosis of some kind, and if the person with that psychosis has a deep religious conviction that evil spirits exist and that one has got into him, and a priest then performs an exorcism, if he believes both in the power of exorcism and in the evil spirit as part of his psychotic imaginings, he will then feel better. So an exorcism can heal psychosis as well as driving out some sort of tangible psychic entity.
A famous Satanist was Aleister Crowley, an English occultist from the early 20th century. Now, he set up the religion and philosophy known as Telema, in which he was the prophet entrusted with guiding his followers. He gained widespread notoriety for his use of religious sacrifices and sex magic, and was denounced by the press as the wickedest man in the world.
Aleister Crowley was a strange man. He wasn't a Satanist, he wasn't a witch, but he was wicked, he was evil, and at the age of 11, he actually murdered the family cat And the reason he did it was because he wanted to test whether a cat really had 9 lives. So he bashed it on the head, he strangled it, he poked its eyes out, he tried to drown it, and he set fire to it. And this was all, as he said, in the name of science. He was a strange gentleman. He was into sex and drugs and rock and roll, debauchery. He was bisexual, and he was into the occult big time.
Aleister Crowley might be the most famous occultist, author, and most importantly, ritual practitioner of magic that's ever been.
Some historians claim that Crowley was recruited into British intelligence and that he remained a spy throughout his life, although this was never proved. As his actions became more and more extreme, in 1920 he was told to leave Britain or face arrest. So he established a satanic commune in Sicily, where he lived with his followers practicing ritual sacrifice, sex magic and other depraved acts. Aaron Paramore is an occult researcher who has studied Crowley in detail. He thinks he really was as wicked as he was portrayed.
So what was Crowley getting up to?
Well, he kind of earned his name, the wickedest man in the world, because he was a notorious bisexual. He enjoyed men as well as lots of women. He was a mountaineer. He was the enfant terrible. He took lots of drugs. He performed sexual magic, and all of this in that time frame was just considered to be absolute whoa, kind of like absolutely off the map, off the deep end. You know, he was members of secret organisations, occult organisations. He claimed he was the Great Beast 666. And he performed, various rituals. We know that he sacrificed a goat in the Abbey of Telema in Sicily. There was a rumour of a cat being sacrificed and the blood being drunk, although that probably wasn't true. Certainly not the blood being drunk. But he got up to pretty extreme things. He was into extremes, and he pushed his followers into those extreme ends as well. Even if you weren't comfortable with it, he would push you and push you and push you and push you. His, his magical motto is "I will endure." So it gives you a sense of what this guy is. Essentially, Crowley's I think Crowley is a bully. But he bullies and pushes people, and they end up burnt out, and he's used them and he casts them aside, and he keeps moving forward himself.
He'd got devotees that were doing anything and everything that he wanted. They believed that he was talking to spirits, possibly to aliens. Whether he really was this new Messiah, or whether he was just a dirty old perv that was having it off with anyone and everyone that believed so much in him, nobody really knows.
What happened in Sicily?
In Sicily, he establishes his religion, and followers come out there, and he forms what he hopes to be a spiritual college. What it's more like is a commune in the 60s. So you've got a lot of free love, people having sex, taking a lot of drugs, which is absolutely scandalous. The British press get a hold of this, and he's absolutely, called the wickedest man in the world by the press while he's there. And eventually the goings on and the rumour and the rumour mill gets so bad that Mussolini himself has had enough of Mr. Crowley and attempts to get him kicked out, and does eventually get him kicked out of Sheffield. In Cefalù, he was known by the people as a truly free man who lived freely from the restrictions of kind of religion. But rituals did go on in there. We know there was a sacrifice of a goat in a particular ritual. We know there was a lot of drug taking and experimentation. There was a room in there called the Chamber of Nightmares. And these were these amazing psychedelic paintings of people copulating with goats, a big degenerate god with a big phallus. And this was supposed to allow you to get rid of your pornographic fantasies. You would eventually become clear of all that sort of stuff, and it wouldn't mean anything to you. You would get rid of all your Christian and your baggage, as it were, and you'd be free from guilt. That was the big thing about it. It is about being free from your own guilt.
Crowley moved to Sicily, and that's when things got really bad. That's when the sex and debauchery really started in earnest. Sacrifices, drinking of blood, sex with anybody. The man was trisexual. He'd try anything. And he really was an evil creature. There's no getting away from it. In fact, it got so bad that he actually believed in vampires and all of this sort of stuff, and he actually had his fangs filed down and pointed, so that when he was biting the necks of his lovers, mainly female, but both, he actually referred to it as giving them a love bite.
Aleister Crowley was definitely one of the most evil men in the world, and the legend speaks for itself, doesn't it? He participated in black masses and really questionable ritual practices with his whole Thelema religious group that he was involved in. Kicked out of England for his behavior and his involvement, and really got up to some really nasty deeds.
This is where they would have blood sacrifices, animal sacrifices, and although we can't prove it, we believe human sacrifices. Really morbid sort of stuff. And guess what? He was at the center of it. It was all about him.
He sounds almost a bit ahead of his time, really. It's the sort of thing you'd imagine happening in the 60s, not in the 20s.
Certainly, after Crowley's death in 1947, things go quiet. The OTO, his big organisation, begins to splinter and break up a bit. But it's the 60s where it really picks up. The Beatles put Crowley on the Sgt. Pepper album. His books get reprinted again. People are finding them in second-hand bookshops, you know, for very little money. Now they're like currency now, you know. And his whole philosophy begins to be taken on board by the 60s. Do what thou wilt. You know, do what you want. They took it to mean that. That's not actually what it means. It means find your true will, your reason for being here on this planet, and pursue it with a vengeance. That's what he was saying.
If you were to go on the internet and drag up the worst possible internet fetish sites you could find, Crowley probably did it. Now, you have to remember, he was one of the first. So he was always looking for something new, something interesting. There's a particularly famous one where he did a particular magical ceremony which involved a woman having sex with a goat. There was other ones where somebody died where they drank the blood of a cat that had been sacrificed. So if you can think of it, he probably thought of it about 100 years ago.
How popular is Satanism today?
Still very popular. You've got the Church of Satan still going strong. You have the Church of Set, which is a splinter group of that, and then within the Church of Set, the Order of the Trapezohedroid, which is a sort of H.P. Lovecraftian kind of feeling, a form of Satanism. A fairly sort of repugnant splinter of Satanism is the Order of Nine Angles. These guys have mixed Nazi ideology within Satanism, and they're a very far-right group. You can get a lot of the stuff on the internet now about them, and all their pamphlets and information are kind of published on the internet now, but quite quite a nasty kind of form of Satanism, to the point that neo-Nazis disowned the Order of Nine Angles and anybody associated with an occult, neo-satanic Nazi group.
At the very heart of Satanism are its rituals, the most infamous being the Black Mass. Its purpose was not only to worship the devil, but also to mock God, and may well involve animal sacrifices and blood, as well as blasphemy and obscenity. Its celebrants may well wear black robes and carry chalices and candles, and may often form a pentagram shape to carry out their ceremonies. It all is, as you can imagine, rather eerie.
If I was to come across a satanic ritual or a black mass, what would I see?
The altar is often a naked woman. The chalice is not filled with wine. It can be filled with a mixture of I believe, sperm and water, and then sometimes it's filled with bourbon, you know. So there are elements of that still within Satanism, but Satanism has become much more sort of magical movement now. It's much more about spells, much more about sort of modern occultism, and less about the old form of Black Mass, which was, you know, in complete reversal of worship of God.
A Black Mass is a ritual ceremony that uses magic for two purposes. One is the defamation of God, and two is the veneration of Satan.
It's based on a Catholic Mass, only it's a lot darker. It's people dressed in black robes with hoods, black candles, inverted crosses, blood sacrifices, the killing of goats and their blood drunk, all manner of debauchery and sex, and even the altar is actually a naked woman, a live one, but a naked woman.
I think the credibility of Black Masses is really questionable. If you think about the participants, why are these people participating in something like this? Is there something psychologically going on with them? And believing in the power of that is probably what produces the power, or the energy surge for them, of exerting their will in this form of evil to try to obtain what they want. So I think it's really about the psychological aspects of it. Does it really have magical powers? In my opinion, no.
A satanic Black Mass is a magical ceremony and inversion or parody of the Catholic Mass for the purpose of mocking God and worshipping the devil. According to reports, some have involved human sacrifice, as well as obscenity and blasphemy of horrific proportions.
Are we becoming more satanic as a society?
I would say yes, we are. I think we are. I think we're moving away. We like to indulge ourselves. People go to the gym. People like to have sex. People like to take drugs. People like to do all these things that were restricted, then we do them. People go out at weekends sometimes, they will take ecstasy and all the rest of it. And that's considered normal now,
Certainly, as Christianity's in decline, people are turning to alternative forms of religion, and obviously Satanism, if there is such a thing as Satan, it's the alternative. It's something different. But to be honest with you, it gives a lot of people what they want. I don't think the church ever has.
When you look at it, let's be honest, the devil has a far better manifesto than the 10 Commandments. How difficult are they? This is the era of 50 Shades of Grey. So going out, having a drink, getting drunk, cheating on your expense reports, having an affair, those are things that you could kind of justify and, not be held accountable. So it's a whole different era when you think about it.
It seems then, in this ever-changing world, the cult of Satan is as popular as ever, with more and more people meeting online or in person to worship or simply hang out. A few of them are pretty hardcore, but the majority consider their Satanism as a kind of protest vote against the church. They don't consider themselves particularly demonic, simply alternative. I'll see you next time.